All right, so today we're diving into something kind of heavy, but in a way I think you'll find really interesting, really gets you thinking.
Yeah, definitely.
We're talking about Grave of the Fireflies.
Okay.
And look, I know right off the bat some people are going to be like, "Oh no, not that one again."
Right.
But trust me, this isn't about, adding to the emotional weight of the film or anything.
No, not at all. Actually, we're going kind of beyond the film itself.
Exactly. We're using this article I found by Nick Sasaki
Okay. Yeah.
as a springboard. It's called Grave of the Fireflies, an Afterlife Reflection, Imaginary Talks. And the whole thing is he writes this dialogue
Huh. Interesting.
between Seita and Setsuko,
Okay.
the siblings,
Right.
after
Yeah.
everything
Rare.
happens to them.
Which is such a unique angle to take.
Right.
To imagine them in a space where they can like process everything.
And it makes you think, how often do we actually crave that kind of closure for characters who've been through so much, especially with a film like this?
Totally.
It's so powerful, but it's so sad.
It's brutal.
So to even just consider them finding like a little bit of peace,
Yeah.
it's almost like we're giving a gift to them and to us.
Definitely. I like that. And the way he writes it, too, is this conversation.
Yeah.
It's so intimate, you feel like you're like eavesdropping almost.
It's not just like an essay analyzing the film.
Right.
It's raw. It's emotional.
Yeah.
It's like you're in the room with them
Yeah, you're there.
as they work through their experience.
Yeah.
And one thing that got me right away was just Seita's guilt.
Oh, yeah.
It is so heavy.
It's ever present, right?
It really is.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something everyone can relate to with trauma.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That need to find a reason,
Totally.
Like it has to be someone's fault or something.
Yeah, you want to latch onto something.
Right. Even when, logically it's not that simple.
It's that need for control. When something so awful happens, especially when you look back and you think it could have been prevented,
Right.
it's only human nature to wonder, what if I did this differently?
Totally.
And that just kills me about this one line
Which one?
where Seita says, leaving Aunt's house, thinking I could take care of us on my own, I keep asking myself if things would have been different if I had made better choices.
Oh, man.
Like, it's just heartbreaking,
It really is. And it's more than just him blaming himself, too, right?
Right.
It speaks to that burden of responsibility that survivors carry.
Yes.
Especially him. He was just a kid himself,
Trying to be an adult.
trying to protect his little sister.
In the middle of a war.
It's a lot.
It's too much. And you see Setsuko, even in this, this afterlife, she's still trying to reassure him.
Really?
Yeah, like she keeps saying things like, I don't blame you. You did everything you could. I always felt safe with you.
Wow.
It just shows you how strong their bond was.
Stronger than anything. And the thing is that guilt, that responsibility, he carries it with him, even in the afterlife.
It's like it follows him.
It makes you wonder, even when you're free from,
Right.
the physical world.
All the burdens.
Yeah. Do you ever really escape the things you carry inside?
Wow, that's a lot to unpack.
Right. It's like how much of finding peace is about what's going on up here.
Totally. And he doesn't really give us an answer, does he?
No, but that's what I like about it. He just presents these ideas
Yeah.
and lets them sit with you. And what's really interesting, too, is how differently Setsuko seems to approach their experience.
That's true. She seems to hold on to those good memories.
Yeah, it's like a defense mechanism almost,
To
right?
protect herself.
Maybe. But it makes you think about how resilient kids can be.
They really are.
Even in the worst possible situations, they find ways to cope.
There's that line where she tells him, but even with all the bad things, I never lost my love for you. That's something the war couldn't take away.
Oh, wow.
Like every time I read that, I don't know, it gets me.
Because it's so pure.
It is. It's so pure and so heartbreaking at the same time.
It speaks to something we were talking about earlier.
What's that?
Hope. Like,
Yeah.
kids haven't lost that yet,
They still believe in the good in the world.
Exactly. And maybe that's what makes this whole dialogue so compelling.
How so?
You've got Seisuda representing that weight.
The guilt, the responsibility.
Right. And then you've got Setsuko reminding us that even in darkness.
There's still light.
Exactly.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
a good way to put it. Do you think that's part of why this film is so powerful?
Definitely, I think so.
Because it's just so sad.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
But there's something about Setsuko.
Her spirit,
Yeah.
her hope.
It stays with you.
It does.
Mm.
Do you think it would have hit as hard if it was only from Seita's perspective?
Oof, that's a good question.
Because that's a lot of weight. Yeah.
Would be heavy.
All that guilt, all that
It'd
responsibility.
be a much different film.
It makes you wonder, right?
It does.
Yeah.
But by having both of them, grappling with it in these different ways, it adds this whole other layer to the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about this article.
Me too.
He's making us think about trauma, of how there's no one right way to deal with it.
And how everyone heals differently.
Exactly. And speaking of healing,
Okay.
that's where this conversation takes a really interesting turn in the last part.
Oh, how so?
Well, they start talking about moving on.
Okay.
But after everything they've been through,
Yeah.
what does moving on even look like?
Right.
Because how do you even begin to move on from something that awful?
Right. It's like, is it even possible to ever truly leave that behind?
Or is it just always with you?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. And I think that's what makes this article so interesting.
What do you mean?
Well, he doesn't try to give you the answers.
That's true. He doesn't.
He gives us a glimpse into how Seita and Setsuko are each trying to find their own way.
Yeah. And it's definitely not easy for either of them.
Not at all. It's like he's saying, look, healing is messy. It's not, a straight line.
And what works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly. And I love how he puts that whole moving on thing.
Oh, yeah. How's that?
Seita says, maybe moving forward doesn't mean forgetting, but finding a way to live with those memories without letting them define us.
Man, that is so powerful.
Right?
Because it's true. You don't just forget these things.
No, you carry them with you.
But it's about finding a way to make peace with them.
To not let them control you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting how their approaches are so different.
Totally. Even in this afterlife.
Seita's still so caught up in the what-ifs.
The guilt is still eating at him.
Yeah. And then Setsuko, she finds comfort in the happy memories.
It's like she's choosing to focus on the light.
While he's trapped in the darkness.
And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer there.
No. I think it's about what works for you.
Finding your own path to healing.
Because at the end of the day, whatever their approach, it's the fact that they have each other.
Yes.
That brings them peace.
That connection, that love, it's a powerful thing.
It really is. Well, we've